Hello everyone, welcome to my simple zoology class. In today's video, I'll be dealing with the topic called synapse from the chapter Neural Control and Coordination. First of all, we need to understand what exactly is synapse. Synapse is nothing but a junction which is located between two neurons, which is going to help in the transmission of information from one neuron to the another neuron. That itself is called as what? Synapse. That's a space or a junction which is located between two neurons. Now, this particular name synapse was proposed by a person named Charles Sherrington. If you can look at this video, you can just have a idea of who is the person who proposed this, and that is Charles Sherrington. Now, we'll understand in this particular topic of how the mechanism or how does the transmission of impulses are going to take place. Okay, here as I already mentioned, it is a junction which is located between two neurons, which is going to help in the transmission of impulses through a wave. Please do remember what type of wave it is, the electrochemical wave. Okay, I'll tell in detail what exactly is this electrochemical wave. Okay, prior to that, what did we directly form a statement as? It's a junction which is located between one neuron and another neuron. Now there are names specifically for it to remember. Okay, if you can look at the second point, the one neuron is called as presynaptic, the one which is present at initially, and the one which is going to be another neuron is called as what? Postsynaptic. You can either call it as presynaptic membrane or presynaptic knob. Similarly, postsynaptic membrane or postsynaptic knob. Okay, and that junction or a space which is located between one neuron and another neuron, that itself is called as what? Synaptic cleft. Then coming to the next one, there are two different types of synapses to be located. One is electrical synapse, the other one is chemical synapse. What exactly is electrical synapse? Here, these two membranes, that is the presynaptic and the postsynaptic, are present in close proximity. Please do remember, because in the form of questions, these kind of statements will definitely come. Like for example, they'll ask you to identify the correct or the incorrect statement. So please remember this. Okay. So electrical synapses, the knobs, that is the pre and the postsynaptic knobs, are present in close proximity. By the name itself, we need to understand that the flow between these membranes are going to be faster because some sort of electrical supply is going to be there. Coming to chemical one, chemical synapses, they have a synaptic cleft. Like I was telling previously, right, there is some space going to be present, and that itself is present over here. That is, they have a synaptic cleft, and the impulse transmission is going to occur with the help of a neurotransmitter. We have come across different categories of neurotransmitter, right? There are first of all two categories of neurotransmitter. One is excitatory, the other one is inhibitory neurotransmitter. If you have to give certain example, one such example for excitatory, you can give acetylcholine. The other example you can give for inhibitory is GABA, that is gamma amino butyric acid. Okay, gamma amino butyric acid. These are the general examples that you have to remember. That is ACH for excitatory, inhibitory, GABA. Then proceeding further, we will be understanding of how the mechanism is going to take place. Okay, please pay attention, look at the diagram and pay attention. I'll be teaching one by one simultaneously also. So when an action potential, so over here the action potential will be generated. Action potential is going to get generated. So the action potential which is going to develop where? In the presynaptic membrane. So what does it do? It becomes permeable to what ions? They are the calcium ions. They are going to become permeable to which type of ions? Because there is action potential. Action potential is nothing but some sort of energy is going to develop over there. That means it is going to help for the transmission of impulses starting from the presynaptic membrane. Okay, coming back, what did I just say? Action potential will be generated where exactly? In the presynaptic membrane. Because here it is being generated, it becomes permeable to calcium ions. Now these calcium ions start entering inside the presynaptic membrane. What does it do? Because there is entry of these calcium ions inside the presynaptic membrane, these are our what? Synaptic vesicles, correct? So these synaptic vesicles, because of the release of the calcium ions inside the presynaptic membrane, they will start bursting out. That means the calcium ions are going to stimulate for the bursting out of our synaptic vesicles, which will result into what? Release of the neurotransmitter directly into this synaptic cleft. So here this is the junction, that is the synaptic cleft. This is our presynaptic membrane, this is the synaptic cleft, and this forms our postsynaptic membrane. I'll repeat the statement once again. Action potential develops where? In the presynaptic membrane, which will result into it becomes permeable to the calcium ions, which in turn will result into release of what? These calcium ions. Because of the release of these calcium ions, under the stimulation of these calcium ions, these synaptic vesicles will get stimulated and they burst out. Once they burst out, inside them they have what? Neurotransmitters present. So these neurotransmitters are ultimately released where? They are released into this junction, that is the space that itself is called as what? Synaptic cleft. Now these neurotransmitter, now it is in the synaptic cleft, will start reaching where? Start reaching the postsynaptic membrane. Once they reaches the postsynaptic membrane, there are certain receptors present. If you can look at this, I have labeled it clearly, the receptors. Now because of these receptors present, what do? These neurotransmitters, they'll go bind onto these receptors. Once they bind onto these receptors, they result into opening up of the ion channels. Now there are different categories of ion channels. If you can look at this important point in the form of note I've mentioned over here, this is very, very important. Questions have come, so please remember this. That is, one such example I've taken is acetylcholine neurotransmitter, which is an example for excitatory neurotransmitter. Example, if excitatory neurotransmitter over here, as I was telling the mechanism, right? Imagine the ACH were present inside the synaptic cleft. ACH has come in contact with the synaptic cleft region. This ACH will bind onto specific receptors over here. Once they bind onto these receptors, what do? There is opening up of the ion channels. Now one such example over here I can give is sodium ions, okay, resulting into opening up of the sodium gated channels. Because of those sodium ions opens, it will allow into entry of the ions inside. So here the entry of these ions into the postsynaptic membrane is going to take place. Only then you can expect for new action potential to be generated. Just like that, it is not going to work out. Only some sort of ion has to come into contact with these what? Receptors which are present on the postsynaptic membrane. Ultimately a new action potential will be generated where? Into the next region, that is the postsynaptic membrane. Okay, example, if you want to break out the acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is broken down using enzyme acetylcholine esterase. What is the name of the enzyme? That is acetylcholine esterase. Just the name esterase I'll be writing down over here. The same thing, acetylcholine esterase, to give rise to products, that is choline and acetate. This is also asked. This is also important. The questions have come twice or thrice in the question papers. The question has come. Similarly, talking about another one, that is inhibitory. I've taken one example of the excitatory, another example of the inhibitory. Inhibitory, that is gamma amino butyric acid. It will bind onto the postsynaptic membrane. Like I was telling, in the ACH region, sodium ions will be entering inside, right? So these will open into ion gated channels, and then a new action potential will be generated in the postsynaptic membrane. Whereas over here in the inhibitory category, once it binds on to the synaptic membrane, that is the postsynaptic membrane, chloride Cl minus channels are going to open up. Previously in the excitatory it was sodium, here it is Cl minus. Now what type of category or what type of mechanism is going to be seen is that hyperpolarization. This question is also being asked, so that is why I've written in a different color so that it becomes prominent for you to remember. What type? Hyperpolarization. That means regular, from the regular it is going to be a little higher than that. So what type? It is hyperpolarization. I hope I was clear in how the mechanism works. If you can see, I've also mentioned the method or the notes has been written. Action potential develops in the presynaptic membrane, which becomes permeable for what? Calcium ions enters into presynaptic membrane. Because the initiation of the calcium ions is going to be done, stimulation will take place, neurotransmitters will be burst, released into synaptic cleft from synaptic vesicles. Now these neurotransmitters are going to reach where? Postsynaptic membrane via the synaptic cleft. They are going to bind on to specific receptors. Because of these, they are going to bind on to specific receptors. This binding will open up what? Open up the ion channels. Allowing the entry of the ions will help in generation of what? New potential on the postsynaptic membrane. Where? On the postsynaptic membrane. So for example, we took example of which one? For the excitatory, it was the ACH for the opening, which ions comes up over there? Sodium ions. Whereas for inhibitory, that is GABA, it was Cl minus. And what type of reaction will be seen? Hyperpolarization over there. If I have made this topic crystal clear for you, I hope you have liked it. If you have liked my video, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you. Have a good